Welcome to the Susan B. Anthony Birthday Gala. I'm Deborah Hughes, President and CEO of the National Susan B. Anthony Museum and House.
Hi, and I'm Kitty Van Bortel, the proud presenting sponsor of the Susan B. Anthony Gala this year.
The year is 2021, and February 15th will be the 201st anniversary of Susan B. Anthony's birth. She was born in 1820 when our nation, the world's experiment in democracy, was less than 50 years old. A nation of the people, by the people, for the people. It's a powerful vision based on the radical idea that every person has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the government gets its power and authority from those who elect them. Susan B. Anthony believed in that vision. She believed we could become a nation of the people, by the people, for all the people. But in 1820, Anthony was born into a nation in which a married woman couldn't own property in her own name or keep her own wages. A nation where few had the opportunity to attend school, and children were often compelled to work hard labor. A nation where immigrants were denied the right to naturalization or property on the basis of their country of origin. A nation that slaughtered indigenous people and seized ancestral lands. And a nation, as we know, that trafficked in the brutalization and enslavement of human beings. Susan B. Anthony was outraged by that hypocrisy and injustice, but she was also hopeful about it. So, Kitty, what do you do when you see something that just isn't right?
I change it.
Yes, this is what we ask children when they come to the Anthony Museum. And 7-year-olds, second graders get it the best. They're right there. You change it. That's why we call our school program Change It. Because Susan B. Anthony believed that if you see something that's not right, you should work to change it. At the Anthony Museum, we're trying to inspire people to continue that work because moving our nation closer to the dream through the reality is what we're all about. We know that's why Susan B. Anthony is still relevant today, because we still have a long way to go, and because we still have hope and commitment. People come to Madison Street for that. Kitty, you've been our presenting sponsor for 15 years. It's a long-term relationship. So tell me, why is Susan B. Anthony important to you?
When I started my business 35 years ago now, it was a very difficult time for me for many years, and a big part of that was gender discrimination. It was very difficult for women to get a door open into the automobile business, and it was certainly very difficult for women to even buy cars without actually having to bring a man with them because they were afraid that they were going to be harassed or put in a bad position. So my goal not only was to just keep going, but it was also to really change the dynamic of how car dealerships were run. Well, early on, I was able to somehow acquire a button that said failure is impossible. And that really started to resonate with me. I kept it often in a spot where it couldn't be seen, and became increasingly more interested in Susan B. Anthony. So I started trying to find out a little bit more about her, and that's really how I got involved with the Susan B. Anthony House and met all these wonderful women that worked there who were able to give me these incredible stories about her life. And what really resonated with me more than anything else was her just unrelentless determination to keep going. And that really helped me. And so she's my hero, she's my friend, and I will do anything and everything I can to keep her legacy alive as long as I possibly can. So that's the reason that for so many years I have sponsored the Susan B. Anthony House, and why I certainly would like to continue to do it in the future.
Susan B. Anthony and other pioneers for racial and gender equity were ridiculed and discredited, especially by the mainstream newspapers, who used their editorial pages to discredit the leaders on the basis of their appearance, their dress, their weight, and their gender nonconformity, rather than tackling their arguments for social justice and inclusion. Susan B. Anthony became adept at using even the bad press to gain attention for her causes. As she said, get good press when you can, but keep them talking. She also used other forms of the written word. The Revolution magazine she published with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Parker Pillsbury. the 4 volumes of the history of women's suffrage that she and Matilda Josley Gage and Elizabeth Cady Stanton edited. She worked with Ida Husted Harper on her own biography, the story she wanted us to read. She wrote a weekly column for 2 San Francisco newspapers. She created a press bureau for the Suffrage Association, and she took on the press wherever she traveled. She used every opportunity she could to share her ideas and to keep people talking. So by the turn of the century, she and Queen Victoria were the 2 most famous women around the globe. Susan B. Anthony wouldn't care about the attention for herself, then or now. She only cared if it could further the cause of justice that she believed in so passionately.
Let's get started with the fundraising part of the event tonight. I want everyone to know that I am going to match the first $10,000 that is coming through with all of you. Please text Kitty at 585-440-8825. Let's go.
I'm Nanette Nokan. When Susan B. Anthony said a woman needs a purse of her own, she wasn't making a fashion statement. She believed everyone should have financial health. It brings joy to decide how to spend, invest, or give. Susan B. Anthony believed in the power of financial independence. I'm proud to support the Anthony Museum. Thank you, Susan B.
The Anthony Museum has many partners: tourism, arts, culture, but also social service organizations that are doing the work Susan B. Anthony believed in. The theme of our Suffragist City Parade was Hope, Courage, and Change, and the floats were virtual. Here are just a few highlights.
Every woman who is blazing a trail today stands on the shoulders of the women who came before them.
This house is completely funded and built by women in partnership with Flower City Habitat for Humanity.
The voices of women are the voices of progress and change.
The right of citizens
of the United States
to vote
may not be denied
or abridged
by the United States
or by any state
on account of sex.
I am writing you a little note to say thank you, Susan B. Anthony, for making it fair so women can vote. Now we have hope.
We will not bow down to injustice. We will not bow down to exploitation. I'm gonna stand. I'm gonna stand.
The will is in women's power.
In the same way that Susan B. Anthony believed that we could be a better democracy, she also understood that for us to be good citizens, we had to have access to good information and sound journalism. She actually had press credentials and launched her own magazine. She believed in public relations, but she knew that to be a better democracy, we had to have good news. How appropriate then that our speaker tonight is Susan Zirinsky, president and executive producer of CBS News, a woman who also understands what it is to change it. Let's listen now to Susan Zirinsky.
Thank you, Deborah and Kitty. It's an honor to be here and included in this event tonight. We're living in a time where exceptional women are being recognized, from the first woman to hold national office, to the first woman referee at the Super Bowl, to more women directors nominated for the Golden Globes than men. It's a first. Susan B. Anthony, she'd be very proud. But I do think, if we're being honest, some of the issues that drove her, including racial equality, equality for women, well, let's just say we're still driving that fight. When I joined CBS News, most of the women correspondents didn't even have desks in the main newsroom. In fact, I had to deliver an envelope once from the White House to Leslie Stahl's desk. I couldn't find it. It was tucked away in a back hallway of the newsroom, and it was so tiny, kind of like something out of Alice in Wonderland. Well, it's certainly a different story today. Stahl's work now at 60 Minutes has earned her the honor of her peers and made a difference. They're probably carving her head right now into Mount Rushmore. Fact: I am the first woman to be the president of CBS News. My senior leadership team is filled with strong, confident women who lead our coverage every day. Nora O'Donnell, the anchor of the CBS Evening News, Gayle King, is one of the most prominent journalists of our time. Margaret Brennan is the anchor of Face the Nation. Jane Pauley leads the fantastic Sunday Morning. I have never considered my gender as a factor in the field. It was just a fact. My goal was just to be the best journalist I could. One of her many achievements, Susan B. Anthony, was a publisher. She and Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Parker Pillsbury created a paper called The Revolution, catchy title, which published articles that argued that women, black and white, should be treated equally to men. She was committed to having different perspectives on the table, and that's something all of us in journalism, specifically those of us at CBS News, strive for every day. What matters most is truth, facts. I bet Susan B. Anthony could never have imagined that the things that mattered to her would still be debated today. Education reform, equal pay for women teachers. We may not think of her day to day, but she did lay the groundwork for not accepting what is, but looking to what should be. It's also unlikely she could have imagined the cataclysmic news cycle that we're experiencing today. An election, an insurrection at the Capitol, an inauguration, all against a backdrop of a global pandemic, an economic freefall, and the unraveling of racial injustices right here at home. We have just come through one of the most dramatic elections of our lifetime, one in which the voters' rights and the voting process were assailed by former President Donald Trump after the election results didn't go his way. Susan B. Anthony fought for the very right to vote. She even cast a vote in 1872, that election, which ended in her being arrested. The 19th Amendment, which granted the right to vote for women, wasn't passed until 48 years later, and sadly, 14 years after her death. Last summer, when we were all noting the 100th anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment, Mr. Trump issued a pardon to Susan B. Anthony. The folks at the museum believe she wouldn't have wanted the pardon because she felt her trial was a miscarriage of justice, and a pardon would only validate that event. The times change, but key human issues remain. Nearly 9 months after we witnessed 8 minutes and 46 seconds of a man's death, the country was cracked wide open, and we are still coming to terms with the rampant, systemic racism and unequal justice in America. We're dealing with the questions of policing and incidents like the one here in Rochester of a 9-year-old girl being pepper sprayed by the police. As journalists, we probed into the national story of racial injustice, starting with George Floyd. Deeply, we couldn't only look outward, we had to look in the mirror at ourselves. The Me Too movement proved empowering. It was a change agent. George Floyd's death unleashed a new movement that forced this nation to confront the harsh reality of these events. I have a sense that Susan B. Anthony would be horrified at where we are, but somewhat encouraged by what has happened since. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm an emotional person, once thought of as a weakness, but have accepted that I lead from a position of humanity. We're covering this story from a deep emotional place. I've had to face the reality that there isn't a single person of color at CBS News who hasn't been through something where their race wasn't a factor. We had to act. We launched a series of race and culture initiatives, an advisory board, even a race and culture unit, advising each broadcast for tone and context, as well as producing specials of their own. We've had listening sessions, coupled with training on microaggressions, and we have altered everything from our recruiting process to our coverage. There's a lot of work to do, but we believe we're on the right path. At this point in my career, I need not tell you how long, for sure, I see my heaviest responsibilities to be upholding the highest journalistic standards and bring people together to evolve into the next generation of a diverse, balanced, and more powerful journalistic workforce. We are on the front lines, in war, in management, in the creative positions from the bottom of the food chain to the top. We act with intention, and yes, sometimes with emotion. But most importantly, with humanity, we are on the front lines when it comes to building a more inclusive and equitable organization for people of color. There's no more talking. We have to act, and we are. There is not a day that goes by, not a single day, that I don't think about who we are at CBS News.
Kitty, we're so grateful. You know, before the event, we asked people if they would be willing to make a gift equivalent to what they would have done last year in buying a ticket to the event. And people bought tables, even though those are virtual tables, and we're incredibly supportive. So we raised over $100,000 before the event tonight, and we're just really pleased at that support.
Well, I'm so pleased to be here with you tonight, and again, please everyone, I am matching the first $10,000. I hope that you can donate as much as you possibly can tonight because it's such a wonderful cause, especially for women, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Burns from M&T Bank. The National Susan B. Anthony Museum and House provides educational programs for children and adults, stimulates our economy by drawing visitors from all over the world, and encourages all of us to become engaged voting citizens.
I'm Nicole Kingsley-Brunner, Chief Marketing Officer at Manning & Napier and member of the Susan B. Anthony House Board of Trustees. Manning & Napier is proud to support this national treasure located right here in Rochester, and we thank the staff at the museum for all that you do to continue to promote the very important work of Susan B. Anthony.
One month into 2021, there's a lot of hope to be found around us. We're making progress in the battle against the pandemic. More people are being vaccinated, and more vaccines are coming. As a country, we are making progress in the fight for workplace equality. We are making progress in removing the racial inequities that have remained hidden for so long. And we are hopeful we can span the separation between us that existed for years. When you look at all the work that Susan B. Anthony did in her lifetime, she was asking for many of the same things we're asking for today: freedom, equality, the ability for those rights to be guaranteed to our children and for every generation. This is at the heart of our conversations right now throughout the country. We cannot deny the impact this woman has had on our lives and will continue to have into the future. Few people in history have had that kind of impact, that widespread impact she has had in so many fields. It took a while, but 115 years after Susan B. Anthony died, we as a country elected the first woman as vice president. She would be proud. She probably would be upset that we hadn't elected a woman president, but I have to believe she'd find some sense of pleasure of a woman making it to vice president. She fought for the right to vote. Getting a seat at the table is key. But getting a seat at the table means you have a voice. That is what matters. She also paved the way for female journalists today. As the story goes, as a child, she didn't like to write. Whenever I take a pen in hand, I seem to be mounted on stilts, she said. Anyone who has ever picked up a pen has felt that struggle with finding the right words, the right way to say something. Fast forward to today, women are on the forefront of some of the biggest stories impacting our world. For instance, Nora O'Donnell and the team at CBS News spent a year and a half investigating sexual assault in the military and how the military had failed the victims. It aired across all CBS platforms. It told the story of some of the women even committing suicide. A day later, the Secretary of the Army reacted, launching a full investigation in how cases of sexual harassment are dealt with. The Secretary of Defense made looking into sexual harassment in the military a top priority. Nikki Batiste's groundbreaking investigations into the 2018 Catholic Church sexual abuse scandal received critical acclaim and resulted in the church taking action. And Gayle King's interview with Breonna Taylor's boyfriend took viewers inside the police shooting of a young EMT. That continues to be a touch point for race and policing in the country. Today, thanks to the groundwork of Susan B. Anthony and her colleagues at The Revolution and so many others throughout our time, all of the chief White House correspondents this year are, yes, women. These are all awesome steps forward. As journalists, it's our job to eliminate the noise and distinguish fact from fiction. We have an editorial responsibility to put context to all voices. But we must first have the voices inside our organization to help us see the stories that need to be told. We at CBS News are dedicated to the mission of a free press. Democracy cannot exist without a free press. We are all here to tell the stories that touch hearts and invoke or provoke change. We're in it. We're listening to the protesters. We see the video. We cover the violence. We hear the pain. We report it. We try to explain it and put it into context. Covering the protests earlier this year, our journalists came under fire. Some of our colleagues in the field were detained by the police, and they were attacked. We cannot let our guard down while reporting the truth, not for a minute. One thing is clear. While Susan B. Anthony was a woman, she fought for equality for all. I'm proud of the strong, smart women in every rank throughout CBS News. A woman I admire once said, "I'm not a show pony, I'm a workhorse." And that's how I see myself. I also like to think that Susan B. Anthony would be proud of where we are and where we're going. There is a clear line from her work to ours. We're all proud to carry on that torch. Thank you so very much.
Hello, I'm Laverne McQuillan-Williams, Dean of RIT's College of Liberal Arts. Partnering with institutions like the Susan B. Anthony House provides our students unique opportunities to connect with Rochester's history and community through field trips, internships and co-ops, and collaborative research experiences that will benefit their personal and professional lives for years to come.
Susan B. Anthony changed the world from right here in Rochester. Today, the Susan B. Anthony Museum and House is changing Rochester's equity and economy. The Community Foundation is proud to promote this national treasure.
You know, the National Susan B. Anthony Museum and House is a National Historic Landmark, 17 Madison Street. And of the tens of thousands of historic properties in the country, only the top 3% get to have that status. And in the United States, very few of those sites are dedicated to women. So people come from all across the country, people come from other countries to visit the Anthony Museum because it's the place where this woman who was an icon for change lived and did her work. It was home and headquarters. And so many times people think we have a long title and you're a National Historic Landmark, you must get a lot of government funding. But no, we are supported by our members and our friends and our sponsors, like you, Kitty, and others who make it possible for us to be the museum to take care of that house. And for 75 years now on Madison Street, we've been using that place to share the powerful story about how we can make the world a better place.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but in talking to a lot of other people that I know donate, it's been just an honor to be part of it. And I just wish you all the success, but we're going to start tonight, and we're really going to, we're going to make some money here tonight, Deborah, for you. So thank you.
So people can text to 585-440-8825.
Kitty, to Kitty. Yes, yes, and I'm going to be watching.
Kitty, I think it's been about the fastest 201st birthday ever, and we really want to say special thanks to Channel 8 and Wendy Bello for making it possible for us to have this event this year, and to everybody else who's been a supporter and who's been a part of our story.
Well, and thank you for inviting me again this year. I've really enjoyed it, and again, everyone needs to keep donating because it's very, very important. So thank you very much.